Hello and welcome to Baseball Barbacast, the only baseball podcast in the world brave enough to call Paul Skenes a loser. I'm Jake Mintz. That's Jordan Shusterm. And last night, Big Paul lost a baseball game for the first time since the 2023 SEC tournament.
It's true, Jake. Good morning. It is Wednesday. I still have COVID, but I am still feeling a lot better. And yes, the last time Paul Skenes lost a game, do you know who pitched on the other side? One Hagen Smith, who just was selected 5th overall by the Chicago White Sox. Yes, Paul Skenes has not been declared a loser by the official rules of baseball since he gave up a few runs to Arkansas in the SEC tournament last year. But last night, he did indeed fall victim to really his own team more than the Cardinals, although credit to Alec Burleson with a wonderful piece of hitting, as they would call it, to put the Cardinals ahead late. What a game that was. We are going to talk about Paul Skenes a little bit to start the show. We are going to open the mailbag later on. I'll tell you right now, if you're excited to hear your email, but you don't hear your email, give us another shot. baseballbarbacast@gmail.com. Keep those coming. We've been getting so many good messages lately that we really appreciate, and we hope to get to as many of them as we can today. Then there are a couple other things we need to talk about, notably that happened last night involving the two Bay Area teams. But Jake, let's start with Paul Skenes. Let's do it. The game last night, I know we've really pretty much talked about Paul Skenes after every start, but each one kind of gives us a slightly different thing to discuss. And this outing in which he pitched into the 9th inning really kind of sparked something in you, I understand.
Yes. Now, what's important to understand is that he's looking kind of dumb with his finger and his thumb in the shape of an L on his forehead.
Because I see it says L Skenes right here.
L Skenes, even though his first name is Paul, more like Wall Skenes. Now, obviously, this is stupid considering he threw to the 8th inning and only allowed 2 runs. And
to the 9th?
Into the 9th inning, sorry. And he was just brilliant again. He was dominant. He was everything that you want Paul Skenes to be. What I really liked specifically last night is that he's getting more early count weak contact, and that's allowing him to work deeper into games. At his first couple starts, I was at his debut, right? He was really nibbling and was kind of afraid to allow contact, and he's been and that kind of prevented him from working deep. He's been a lot better at that recently. But watching Paul Skenes throw into the 9th inning of a 1-1 game and the Pirates ending up losing 2-1 has me steamed on this beautiful Wednesday morning. Not just for Pirates fans, for who I feel a lot of empathy and sympathy, but for baseball fans, because we should be seeing Paul Skenes happy at the end of games when they cut to him in the dugout in the 9th after he throws 8 1/3. That is a man who should be smiling if he only allows 2 runs after he did last night. And that brings us to a conversation about the trade deadline and the Pittsburgh Pirates. The Pirates reportedly, all indications are that they're not going to go all in at this deadline. And I don't necessarily think they should go all in. However, this team needs to add. The future for them is now. Yes, their future is also bright. Maybe. None of us know. We might all be dead in 2 years. Paul Skenes' elbow could go kablooey at any given moment. What he is right now is one of the 5 to 3 best pitchers on planet Earth. They are a game and a half out of the wild card, and their offense freaking stinks. Their rotation, though, is so good and so promising for this season that if they go into a 3-game set in the playoffs against any team with Skenes, a healthy Jared Jones, and Mitch Keller, that is a formidable situation for any lineup. Yeah. And I think the Pirates, where they're at right now, just add one more unequivocal guy who rakes, a guy who bangs, a guy who bops. Give me Brent Rooker. Give me Randy Arozarena, who's turned his season around over the last month and a half. Heck, even give me like Brandon Lau, right? Like just give this lineup something that looks like competence so that Paul Skenes right now has the opportunity to pitch in the playoffs. The Pirates have stumbled in some ways onto one of the best pitchers in the world. Okay. This is not necessarily someone they had to like develop, right? They got the number one pick because they won the draft lottery and they were really bad. And then they took kind of the relatively obvious guy at number one, and he's been immediately amazing. Okay.
Yeah.
They made the right selection. That's really important. Mm-hmm. Now he's selling out your stadium every 5 days. Give him the opportunity to take you to the promised land. He's doing everything that he can. Mm-hmm. And it's just so frustrating and infuriating to watch this team not live up to that standard.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you said, and we'll see, right? We're going to find out here soon whether they do nothing. I mean, again, there's a spectrum here. I mean, they could do nothing, which would be disappointing, but also there's also a version of these next few days where they actively subtract, and that's where we really start to get into some disappointing territory. If you start pulling from this bullpen, if you trade a Chapman, trade some of the other relievers that have obviously also been important to their season this year. So I agree with you. I mean,
but
I know
it depends, right? Like if I'm just pulling something out of thin air. If they trade like Aroldis Chapman for Kyle Stowers, mm-hmm. right? Someone who could play right now at the big league level on the offensive side of the ball, that's a slightly different conversation. If they're trading Aroldis Chapman for a 17-year-old kid in the Dominican Summer League,
right.
Then it's different.
I know you're just coming up with a name. I mean, I don't know if Kyle Stowers, as much as God bless him, that does not qualify what you're talking about as like someone who can help the offense for sure, right?
I understand.
And so maybe there's a way they can thread that needle. I do think they're with a lot of these teams that are going to kind of wait until the very, very end before they make this decision. I know some people listening to this are saying, okay, great, maybe Paul Skenes and Mitch Keller and Jared Jones, if he's healthy, which we're still waiting to see that, could win a postseason series. Is this still, even if they do add one guy, is this a team that can go all the way? Probably not, right? But it is when you have, to your point, like when you have clearly energized the city in such a real way and you have something that is so unique and something that is, I mean, truly like such an automatic thing. Even last night, you couldn't ask him to do any better. I mean, 0 walks, 4 hits. Like you could not ask him to pitch much better than he did, and you end up losing a close one. And they tied it in the 8th, and it felt like okay, that's what prompted them to send him back out for the 9th. And then they just couldn't quite put enough together. But I don't know, man. I just hope they don't go backwards. I'm just gonna say that far. I really have little confidence that this is going to be the team amidst all these teams that are trying to get one of the very few bats available. I'm very skeptical that this is the team that's going to pony up to make one happen. I would love to be wrong about that. I just hope they don't go too far backwards. That is where I'm holding on for Pirates fans this year.
The world's getting hotter. We're all going to be gone in 2 years. Whatever.
2
just
years,
trade
man.
all your
you
prospects.
Just keep giving me the 2 years timeline. I'm trying to get through this bout of COVID and then enjoy some life. All right, let's give me a little bit more time than 2 years. I mean, right? I know we're trying to be a little dramatic here on the pod, but let's.
I'm not being dramatic, Jordan. Look, Pirates, give Jordan a reason to fight through his COVID. Give him something to look forward to. Okay.
So anyway, Skenes still awesome. What a freaking surprise. Also, because again, like we're always looking forward to the next one, slated to pitch in Houston next week, which would be delightful. So we can all look forward to that. And we will see if the Pirates can outscore the Astros. The A's can. The A's can outscore the Astros. If the A's can outscore the Astros, surely the Pirates can outscore the Astros. Jake, you were in Yankee Stadium last night for some percentage of the first game between the Yankees and the Mets, I believe. The Yankees, with a very intimidating lineup that they rolled out there, with J.D. Davis batting cleanup, were not able to score enough runs to defeat the Mets of New York in the first game of this little 2-game Subway Series set. What did you come away with that? Did you leave that stadium feeling as strongly as you do about the Pirates at the deadline?
No, I don't feel strongly about anything in my life as strongly as I feel about the Pirates offense.
Okay, I was going to say that was even for you. That was
to be clear.
Getting
However,
real passionate. Yeah,
I know that the city of New York and the Yankees fans within it feel certainly quite passionate about the Yankees lineup and their lack of formidability at the current point in time. Last night they've rolled out Jahmai Jones, DH leadoff hitter, and JD Davis, 4-hole cleanup man. Okay. Jahmai Jones, Juan Soto, Aaron Judge, JD Davis, kind of the equivalent of the Bugatti in the crummy garage meme, or like the clowns lining up to burst into the soldiers with the clowns running into the thing. Respect to Jahmai Jones, he's been an admirable bench guy, and he's still on the roster, which is amazing. He should not be DHing or leading off for the New York Yankees in 2024 when they're trying to be good. Simple as, right? Respectfully. Same thing with JD Davis hitting fourth. Like, oh, wow. I can't believe that Aaron Judge was walked 4 times last night. 4 times. I wonder if it has anything to do with JD Davis hitting right behind him. What do you think, Jordan?
Yeah, I would say probably contributed to that. And this is kind of where they're at, and we've seen this already. Juan Soto himself said earlier this week that the Yankees cannot go to the World Series because of 2 guys. They need more than 2 guys to go to the World Series. Who do you think he was talking about? Do we know? Do we have any idea?
Yeah, the other guy.
Yeah, we probably talk about
I think
himself and Carlos Narvaez. Probably not. So I would just say that last year at this time for the Yankees, it was pretty clear that they were just not good, and they acted accordingly at the deadline. They did nothing. Now that pissed off a lot of Yankees fans, and I understand why, because at that point it was still like, how could you possibly punt on any season where the Yankees? But Brian Cashman told us last year, I don't believe in this team. And he was right. They were not good and they did not deserve further investment. However, this year, we are still talking about a team, as horrible as they've looked, that has the best run differential in the American League, still has a very, very impressive pitching staff. And with Soto and Judge, that is still, if you are going to have 2 hitters, those are still 2 good hitters to start with, as bad as everything else is. And so with that in mind, there is no sitting around and doing nothing this week. I do not think that will happen. But with this many just huge problems on the offensive side, I am fascinated to see where they pick and choose to actively address something, because I don't think they're going to be, there's just not enough players out there available for them to fix all these things. I know they're going to have some guys coming back. Stanton, I think, is maybe coming back pretty soon, which is good. Jason Dominguez maybe could also be back soon and maybe could help, but they're not going to be able to fix everything. So they're going to have to be very, very, very direct and intentional about which spots they say this needs fixed as soon as possible.
So it presents a very interesting situation, because everything but Judge and Soto's pretty uninspiring.
Yeah.
And so you can improve in a lot of areas, right? You could go get an infielder, or you go get out. You could do a lot of different things, but they have these guys who are relatively like entrenched, where you're going to have to bench DJ LeMahieu or Gleyber Torres or Alex Verdugo. You're going to have to take someone who is expecting to play every day, maybe not someone who deserves to be playing every day, and you're going to have to move them to the bench. It's only going to get more complicated when eventually Anthony Rizzo gets back, and they're going to have to figure out what to do with him, with Ben Rice, who's been playing first base and has looked very good. That's going to be very interesting.
Yeah,
they just need another competent hitter, whether that's Randy Arozarena or Brandon Lau of the Rays, right? They just there needs to be something else here, because, look, I understand JD Davis is only hitting 4th last night because they're facing a left-handed pitcher. I get that. I understand that. Doesn't matter to me. Doesn't make a difference to me. You're the New York Yankees. You need to have a more formidable middle of the order if you're trying to win a World Series, and that's the case with them this year. It's that simple.
Yeah. If you had to say right now, we talk about who is not, like, Volpe's not going anywhere. He's shortstop, right? That's honestly like the first thing where I'd be like, that's not changing. Other than that, and I guess the catching situation, I don't really anticipate changing dramatically, right? It's going to be Trevino if he's healthy and Wells, right? Other than that, man, I don't know. I feel like they could do a lot of things. They could change a lot. And then in theory, right, they want to keep DH open for Stanton. But other than that, I don't know. I think everyone else, I think Verdugo, I think LeMahieu, Gleyber even. Gleyber's some signs of life. I know he homered last night. All those guys, they might just say, screw it. Don't care how much money you're making. this team is in theory too good to just let this roster spot be terrible. And if there is a way to upgrade, we're going to do it. So we'll see.
But Aaron Booth says they're taking good at-bats. I mean, you ask him every night after they lose, and he says they took some good at-bats last night.
He might be right.
You know what I would like?
That doesn't sound like the thing the Yankees fans want to hear.
I want Boone to say, just like, the Yankees fans would love this if Boone just went. I got to say, Alex Verdugo took 3 freaking buns at-bats last night. Like, those were cheeks, those at-bats he took last night.
Scott Service finally did that with the Mariners the other night. He was just like, we gave it away. That was embarrassing, disappointing, terrible. I think we need to say, honestly, right? What is it? Toxic positivity. I don't know if I would go that far with Boone, but it is funny that we're really saying the same things over and over and over and over. Anyway, what about the Mets? Quickly on the Mets, because they're another team I think we're very interested about with the deadline approaching. Pete Alonso was a name that we talked about a lot over the offseason. Okay, would they extend him? I think it became very clear that was really never going to happen because his agent's name rhymes with Pot Storis. But Pete has been... Pete's having an interesting season.
He's pretty good.
He's pretty good, right? I mean, I would say it's probably not the season he wanted to be having going into free agency. I think there's a version where he was like really tearing it up and it was like, oh my God, Pete's going to, not only do the Mets have to keep him, but someone's going to bid him up like crazy. His slug is under 500 for the first time in his career. I mean, he has 19 home runs, right? And his OPS plus is roughly the same as it is last year, but that has more to do with offense being down. So, Pete's been good, but he hasn't been amazing. But the point is the Mets have been good enough to where it doesn't seem like he is. Now, again, if the Mets were bad, teams would still be very excited to trade for Pete Alonso, but it doesn't seem like that is a thing that is going to happen in the next week.
That is what I think is interesting. For the first 2 months of the season, the Mets were a train wreck, and then Jorge Lopez threw his glove and Grimace showed up to the stadium and Jose Iglesias dropped OMG and everything changed. And now the Mets are in the third wildcard spot, and a player that we had kind of compartmentalized as they will get traded is almost certainly not getting traded because the Mets are in contention. And part of the reason they're in contention is Pete Alonso, even though he has somewhat underwhelmed this year. So I think it's important to if you look at the NL East, playoff odds, the Mets are at 46%.
Wow.
They're right now at 46%.
I mean, again, I know they're in a spot, but I guess that sounds about right. Again, like I said this going into the year when we were talking about the Mets as kind of being in this transition period, I was like, listen, they have too many good players to just punt on this year. And the pitching staff they built has put them in a situation where it might cost them. It still might cost them. And I still am looking at that. I'm like, man, is this really a staff that is going to be good enough to get to October, let alone win anything if you do get there? I think the offense is absolutely good enough to do that. It's been one of the best lineups in the National League. Like it really has. But I think that's also a good transition to another topic that we wanted to get to, which is just guys that are coming back, because Kodai Senga is finally supposed to be back. And that is just a massive deal. I mean, the fact that he's been missing for the whole season can't really take all those missed starts away. But the timing here is pretty huge. And while we often roll our eyes at, oh, this is our big trade deadline acquisition, since I don't expect the Mets to be super aggressive in terms of adding, getting Senga back at this point suddenly makes them feel a lot more viable. Now, again, I'll actually have to see him be healthy because shoulder injuries are scary. And, I just want to see what he looks like. But he was one of the best pitchers in the league last year. And so that is a huge guy to suddenly add to a rotation that isn't that bad, right? With the way Severino's been throwing and Quintana and I are okay. And I'm not thrilled about it, but Senga suddenly makes them, again, in this NL mess, it's like, all right, sure. This is good enough. Sure. Why not?
And he's going to be important because Christian Scott, their young rookie pitcher, is out with a UCL sprain, which...
Tell me about that. I haven't heard of those. What's that? Where is that? That's the elbow, right?
Yeah, it's like when you go to the nurse's office, you just need some ice. Just toss some ice on it, take an Advil, hop back out there after 15 days on the IL. You're going to be just fine.
Sounds like not the case for Christian
Sounds
Scott.
like not the case.
Yeah.
But the reason this is relevant is because with Senga coming back, they wanted to do a 6-man rotation to kind of onboard him a little bit slower. And because it's not like they have 5 clear starters, going with a 6-man is fine. But with Scott out, it kind of complicates things. I think that means Joey Butts, aka Jose Buto, might be stretched back out and return to the rotation. Tylor McGill is another option there. But we need to talk about Clayton Kershaw being back. He is going to start tomorrow night, Thursday night, for the Los Angeles Dodgers. Which,
how about that?
Hell yeah, dude. How he looks, I think, may play a role in the Dodgers deadline. If Kershaw comes out tomorrow night and is totally butt, the Dodgers might be even more aggressive in adding a starter. I think that is going to happen no matter what, considering how many injuries they have and how much talent they have on the IL. But what Kershaw can give them the rest of the year, whether they expect him to start a postseason game, how he looks in his first start back will give us some glimpses into that.
That's the big thing. And I wrote about this a little bit as Kershaw for kind of a Dodgers second half X factor, mostly just because he's for my power rankings this week at Yahoo, which you can check out. I just wrote about, interesting second half player for every team. And I think Kershaw was going to be compelling no matter what was going on with the Dodgers. But when you think about, before the season and you looked at their starting pitching and it was like, man, like they're really not going to need him anytime soon. They've loaded up this rotation with guys like Glasnow, like Yamamoto, Bobby Miller. Oh man, the season he's coming off of. We got Buehler coming back. We got Gavin Stone. We got all these guys. And now suddenly it's like, Clayton, we need you, buddy. We really need you here. And I'm honestly surprised at how quickly he's come back, but it's certainly encouraging. But it's, man, it's just, we don't know, right? He could come out throwing 88 and it's not pretty. And I hope that's not the case. I think he's going to compete his ass. Yeah.
Or he could come out throwing 88 and everyone could be swinging and missing, which is the thing that Clayton Kershaw does, right?
That has been already happening.
Right. The velocity is not going to be 95. Duh, it hasn't been 95 in some time.
Yes.
To me, it is, what's the command like? How does the slider look?
Yes.
How long does he work into the game?
Yeah. And at this point, it's still trying to envision, I guess this is the simplest way to put it, trying to envision what would have to happen for him to pitch his way to start a postseason game. I still feel like that involves a lot of things going wrong for the Dodgers. If that makes sense. Do you disagree? Because maybe I'm wrong. Like I just with in theory who they have healthy and who they are going to hope to have healthy by the end of the season. I'm super curious if he can pitch his way in, or if it's just like, dude, give us your best for the rest of the regular season. We just need to get through it and win this division again, and then we'll go from there.
Who's definitely starting a game for the Dodgers in October? Glasnow lock if he's healthy. Gavin Stone if he's healthy. Those are the two locks for me. Yamamoto, obviously, if he's healthy, but I think there's a bigger question mark on him returning now in enough time. We don't
have a timeline on him.
We don't have a timeline.
Sure.
But I would even pencil him in just for the sake of this conversation. Yeah. That's 3. Okay, you need 4 starters. I feel better about Kershaw than Bobby Miller right now.
How can you say that? He has,
because Bobby Miller, I understand, but Bobby Miller did throw a lot of pitches and was actively bad in the major leagues.
This is not a ringing endorsement of Bobby Miller. I'm just saying,
this is like the same conversation of having confidence in a prospect who hasn't appeared in the big leagues yet, in a way where it's like the mystery of what we don't know in some ways is more comforting than the downside of what we already see.
There's other comforting things about Kershaw. I get that. I'm just saying, I don't know.
Do you really believe this is what you really believe that Bobby Miller is more likely to start a postseason game for the Dodgers this year than Clayton Kershaw?
I don't know. I think this is really interesting. I can't believe you're saying that this is any sort of certainty. I'm not saying that he is. I just this is where it becomes fascinating. What the hell's going on with Buehler? Where does he fit in
Florida working out at Cressy or something?
No, he's back. He was just at Dodger Stadium the other day. I don't know what's going on with him. There's just it's so many strange. Let's be real, Jake. Brent Honeywell is starting Game 4 for the Dodgers. Okay. No, just kidding. Anyway, but Kershaw, there's just no matter what happens from here, I'm glad he's back. But what happens from here is truly a truly fascinating thing because of how we got here.
I don't have expectations. It's hard for me to foresee a scenario given the options that they have right now, healthy options, that the mystery box that is Clayton Kershaw feels bizarrely like a pretty good path forward for them.
That's fine. I mean, you might be right. I would like to watch him pitch a game. Okay.
Before I sound so confident.
I would like to get a couple weeks in, right?
That's maybe, because you like to see things before you make conclusions, whereas I like to sit here on my desk chair and just say stuff into the ether. Before we take a quick break, though, Jordan.
Yeah.
Before we take a quick break, I guess we should just mention Mike Trout appeared in a game in the minor leagues and left with left knee discomfort. I really don't want to talk about this right now.
No, it makes me sad. It makes me sad. I hope Mike Trout plays again this year, as sad as it will be, because he'll be playing on a bad Angels team. And then Robbie Ray's coming back. Robbie Ray is actually pitching tonight against Tyler Glasnow, who is also back. I completely missed that Robbie Ray was already like very much this close to coming back. He's been pitching in the minor leagues. He looks like Robbie Ray. So probably too late for this Giants season. But that is another guy that would be very nice to add to your rotation in the middle of the year, very much as planned.
Can you please refer to him by his full name, which is Cy Young Award champion Robert Ray?
It's just Cy Young Award champion.
Yeah, champion.
Hey, that's what the Mariners called him when they signed him. Two more quick topics before we take a break and get to your emails. Let's stick on the Giants quickly.
These are two things we need to talk about.
We need to talk about this. Jake, what did you know about Tyler Fitzgerald before this season?
Tons.
So much. Like there's so much that like we don't even have time to get to all the things you knew about Tyler Fitzgerald.
Yeah,
as he Googles frantically. Where did he go to school? Do I remember him playing in college?
He played at Louisville.
Yeah. Where?
Louisville.
Thank you. Tyler Fitzgerald has homered in 5 consecutive games. He is the first Giant to do that since Barreled Bonds in 2004, a season in which Barry Bonds was very good. He actually homered in 7 straight games in April of 2004. Tyler Fitzgerald, first Giants rookie to homer in 5 straight games. Sarah Lang's giving us the note that no rookie ever has homered in 6 consecutive games. So he will, assuming he's in the lineup tonight against Tyler Glasnow, will attempt to become the first rookie ever to homer in 6 consecutive games. This is ridiculous. I remember Tyler Fitzgerald sort of popping up last year. He debuted last year. I remember him as a college player. He's very fast and he could play a lot of positions. But that's what makes this surge so wild, because the two things that make this surge so ridiculous for Tyler Fitzgerald. One, he's playing shortstop. The shortstop position for the Giants, since Brandon Crawford got really bad very fast after 2021 and left, and whatever they were doing this year with Nick Ahmed, this has been a disaster position for the Giants. They thought maybe Marco Luciano was going to be the answer. I don't know what's going on with Marco Luciano, but he's clearly not playing shortstop right now. So for Tyler Fitzgerald to show up, who has been this kind of interesting utility player bouncing around, he's been playing center, he's playing second, and this is a guy that had already gone up and down between AAA and the minors this year like 5 times. This is a guy who has pitched for the Giants multiple times this season, because that is kind of where they viewed him on the roster hierarchy. And now he is a shortstop homering in 5 consecutive games. If Tyler Fitzgerald is their answer short, this is just an unbelievable find just to drop from the sky. Now, I don't expect him to homer for every game for the rest of the season, but if they have found their answer at shortstop and it's Tyler Fitzgerald, like, holy crap, that is just outstanding. Good for him.
I think that's a great way to put it. He was pitching garbage time position player innings for them, and he's probably not going to do that anymore for the rest of the year. But Jordan, I just want to be clear. I do actually know quite a bit about Tyler Fitzgerald.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Can I just tell you some things about Tyler Fitzgerald?
Yeah. I'm
so
sure
the person with the greatest, the person with the greatest influence on his athletic career is his dad. His hobbies and interests include.
I'm not sure I would have guessed that.
His dad played in the minors. Hobbies and interests include listening to music, fishing, playing video games, hanging with friends, lifting weights. His favorite movies are The Sandlot and Moneyball. His favorite TV shows include Prison Break, Sons of Anarchy, and The Office. His favorite athletes are good range. LeBron James, Derek Jeter, and Chipper Jones.
Derek Jeter.
Derek Jeter fan. Shortstop.
All right. Interesting.
And then his favorite cereal is Fruity Pebbles. His favorite candy bar is Hershey's, which is just outrageous and boring.
Yeah, come on, we could do better, Tyler.
His favorite restaurant is Chipotle, which respect, basic. Right. However, I would like one player to say, "Oh, my favorite restaurant is like La Industry Pizza," or like something kind of more niche. Like, prove you're a foodie. Don't just say Chipotle.
So, all this information, which I assume you just got off of his Louisville roster bio.
No,
I
definitely
knew all
not.
That. I didn't know any of that. However, if you asked for me to guess, if the baseball player named Tyler liked Chipotle, watching movies, Derek Jeter, and fishing and hanging out with his friends, I probably could have told you that.
His dad was the biggest influence in his baseball career.
Tyler Fitzgerald. What a hero. Anyway, one other player that we should mention is Lawrence Butler, who homered again last night.
I should have done like, his favorite musician is like Chappell Roan.
Yes. Now I'm paying attention.
I should have stuck that in.
I'd be like, oh, what? He put that on his college roster bio in 2019? He was real early on HOTTOGO. All right, Jake, I'm going to read you the WRC Plus leaderboard for this month of July. Because number 1 is not Bobby Witt Jr. It is Lawrence Butler of the Oakland A's, who is hitting .417, .470, .950. He's slugging .950 in July, Jake, with 8 home runs.
A's bang.
He is one of the A's who bangs. Brent Rooker is number 3 on this WRC Plus leaderboard, right behind Bobby Witt Jr. And I just love this. Lawrence Butler, and the way it kind of ties back to Tyler Fitzgerald, and the way it kind of ties back to the 4th player on this list, which is Brenton Doyle, which is just a big picture lesson and reminder about the sport of baseball and how teams go about. I was thinking about this with the draft and all these things, which is draft athletes, because if they figure out how to play baseball, they're going to be better than most of the other players. That is true with one of the fastest players in the game in Tyler Fitzgerald. That is true with an absolute freak of an athlete in Brenton Doyle, who was playing D2 ball in West Virginia and just needed some time to learn how to hit. That is true for Lawrence Butler, a high schooler in Atlanta who took some time to kind of figure out how to hit, how to access his power, how to be an effective base runner and fielder. It's all coming together for these guys. And that is why you bring athletes into your organization. Sometimes they will be Bubba Starling, bless his heart. But sometimes if you wait long enough, they will become impact major leaguers. And I think all those guys are reminding us of that right now.
Let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll talk about more athletes, AKA all of you who emailed us. And welcome back to Baseball Barbacast. Jake Mintz, Jordan Shusterm. I love checking the mail. Whenever my fiance and I get home, I will always open the mailbox in front of our apartment and see what's in there, even though in 2024, it's just nothing, really.
Or like, oh, this is for whoever lived here before. Why am I still getting their mail?
My college is asking me for money, and I'm not going to give it to them because I don't think that's a good use of my money.
You'll wear their shirt on the pod.
Hell yeah,
but hold off on the donations for a little bit.
Better believe it. But because I love mail so much, we're going to dig into that mailbag and read your emails. Let me just say, we read every email that gets sent to us. We're bad at replying. Most of that is my fault as someone who has 730 unread text messages. It is the worst part of me as a person. It is a deplorable thing. I hate it about myself.
Collective failure for us. And I think that maybe as I remain stuck in COVID isolation, I will answer some of these in the coming days. But we're going to answer some of them now on the podcast.
I was going to say, my bachelor party's coming up. Yes. Not this weekend, but the following. Yes. Maybe me and
Am I invited? I'll be there, right?
I think so.
Okay,
me and you and the rest of the crew, maybe we sit down at the beach and we just answer all these emails as a group.
That'd be right. And then everyone will be like, hey, it's what Jake wanted to do. Hey, it's Jake's
wedding,
it's Jake's weekend. It's his thing, man. This is what he wanted to do. That would not be fair to our incredible listeners to have some of these wonderful emails answered by people I will not name.
All right, but let's dig into the ones we do have, and we will begin with an email from Jacob. It's a little long, so I'm going to kind of edit this down as I read it, but it's a very hilarious concept. The title of this email is Funniest Award That Could Be Used in a Contract Incentive. Jacob writes that he went digging for contract incentives on Spotrac, which is an underrated resource for us. And he says, some of the contracts I found included incentives for Hunter Green if he finishes 60th in Cy Young voting, not 61st, though. I don't think that that's possible, Jacob, because...
So it is possible, but it would require like an unprecedented number of players to receive Cy Young votes. I do not believe the Cy Young ballot has ever gone that deep.
I think the wording of this...
Yeah.
I think the wording of this just means that if he receives Cy Young votes is probably what that is. Okay. A Gold Glove incentive for Josh Hader.
Yes, I have seen pitcher Gold Glove incentives. Very funny.
Funnier because he's a reliever.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes.
A Silver Slugger nominee incentive for Jonathan India. A Hank Aaron Award incentive for Javi Baez. And different levels of incentive for being an all-star starter versus reserve for Colt Keith.
Right, his extension. Yeah.
I was also entertained by the vesting options for Carlos Correa, so I will be paying close attention to the 2031 ALCS MVP race. I wanted to ask, what is the funniest possible award that could be included as an incentive for a contract? Personally, I think All-Star Game MVP would be awesome, or Comeback Player of the Year. Comeback Player of the Year is especially funny for someone who's totally healthy and consistent. Just to see someone tank a season so they can come back and win Comeback Player of the Year, they get an extra $500,000. I also think some niche statistical incentives would be fun. Would love to hear you guys add your own thoughts. Jordan, what comes to mind for you?
Well, the first part of the email reminds me of Miguel Cabrera, who at the end of his eternal extension with the Tigers had, like, if he'd finished top 10 in MVP like 3 years ago, his option for the next year would have vested for like $30 million or whatever. Obviously. And you're talking about, like, you know, voters colluding to force the Tigers to pay Miguel Cabrera an additional $30 million in his age 40 whatever season. But as for what he's really getting at, which is, you know, what are the most obscure incentives we can kind of work in there? Right, because a lot of this is award voting related and honors like that, but stats specifically, we see it often with, you know, pitcher appearances, innings kind of standards, but we don't really see. Maybe triples would be an interesting one. I think that could be a fun one to see a player that would essentially incentivize a player to go for triples in very ridiculous situations. I think that's one that could actually, I don't know what scenario, what kind of player it would take to kind of get you there, but I think triples is a fun one.
I'm going to propose a Roberto Clemente Award winner. So the Roberto Clemente Award is given, you know, the actual wording is kind of jargony, but it's given to the player who does the most charity work, essentially.
Ooh.
And so what I would be interested in is, if you give enough money to charity, are you then rewarded on the back end in your contract? Is there some sort of like tax, you know, finagling you can do there?
Which, if you are a true humanitarian, you would then give right to charity.
Bonus.
It would just be that bonus that you got for all your humanitarian work would then continue on with your legacy as a charitable, you know, big leaguer.
So it's like, if I have an incentive in there for, I get $1 million for winning the Roberto Clemente Award, it then behooves me to donate $900,000, right? I'm then making $100K. So
that's interesting.
Big brain thought.
That's a nice way to again, it seems like there are a lot of very, you know, big leaguers that put a lot of money towards a lot of good causes. But if the league felt like, you know, there weren't enough guys, you know, putting money towards the good of the public, then I guess this would be a way to do that. But then here's the problem with that. You know, I don't know if there are situations where behind the scenes players are like kind of pissed that they didn't win the Roberto Clemente Award. But, you know, you have to wonder if then it almost becomes competitive, which, again, if you make charity competitive, it's not the worst thing in the world. But, you know, you might run into some issues there. Guys are taking it really personally if they're not winning it.
I'm going to say one more, which is you have to win an ESPY.
Oh, wow. Okay. So how do you win an ESPY? I'm not super familiar with like it because generally I think the category is like it could be like at literally one highlight, right? It could be one play. That I kind of like. Like if you have the number one highlight, like MLB Network at the end of the season always does like top 100 plays of the year. Like if you have a top 10 play of the season by MLB Network, there should be some sort of bonus there. I think that's fun because now that's honestly in some ways cooler than, or like some number of views, like your highlight got a certain number of views on social media. You get some sort of bonus there. How about that?
So there is an award at the ESPY called Best Male Athlete. Okay. There's also like Best MLB Player is apparently an award given out to at the ESPYs, and Shohei Ohtani has won it every single year since the pandemic. But I'm now looking at the history of the ESPY awards to see how many baseball players there are. And there are very few. Ohtani, who won this award in 2022, which is funny because it's given out in the middle of a season. Remember? So Ohtani got this for the end of 21 and the first half of 22. He is the only baseball player to win this award since he was the first one since Mark McGwire in 1999. Okay. So it is difficult to win the ESPY if you are a baseball player. Only here we go. MLB players to win an ESPY, to win the Athlete of the Year, Male Athlete of the Year, ESPY. Barry Bonds in 94, Cal Ripken in 96, Griffey in 98, McGwire in 99, Ohtani in 2022. Okay? So that's a tough list. So if, you go out there and you win an ESPY, you should be rewarded financially. Lance Armstrong won 4 in a row, which, I could talk about for a long time, but I won't.
Lance Armstrong with 4 in a row, and Barry Bonds didn't win any from 01 to 04?
Barry Bonds did not win any from 01 to 04. He was nominated every single season and lost to Tiger and then Lance.
I can't argue against Tiger. I think the baseball players also would have voted for Tiger. So
they do love wearing red on Sundays. All right,
I can't believe Tyler Fitzgerald did not mention Tiger Woods.
Yeah, that
is a massive shock.
That's more surprising than him hitting 5 home runs in a row.
I agree.
Next email is from Mike. Hey, J&J, first time, long time. I don't know why this popped in my head. I wanted to ask if you guys know what a player's status is after he's no longer a rookie. Like, they don't go straight from being a rookie to a veteran, right? I'm assuming there is X number of years until a player achieves veteran status. What's the in-between call? Thanks, Mike. So this is a great point because I would say a vet, to call someone a vet, in my mind, they have to have finished their 6 years of team control.
Okay, so reach free agency, you think?
I think you have to reach free agency.
6 basically have gone through ARB. I think that's too high of a standard. But I don't know. I think, well, the two thoughts are, the two really interesting parts of this are his question, which is, when do you become a veteran? But I'm almost more interested in us coming up with some sort of nomenclature for the in-between.
You're just a youngster.
It is true that, okay, I think about this, when we do our under 26 rankings, which we've done at Fox and, we've done versions of Yahoo, right? We've struggled with players like Rafael Devers and Vladimir Guerrero Jr., who have been in our lives for quite a while. Rafael Devers, he's a veteran, is he not? Like, he's still kind of has, youthful energy, but is he not a veteran at this point?
So I think the other dynamic here is that the term veteran implies a lack of skill. No one is referring to Shohei Ohtani as a veteran ball player.
So
the word veteran to me means that you are not an all-star level player.
Yeah. Well, I don't think it means you aren't. But I do know what you're getting.
I think you have to be older. Like, I think the better you are, the older you need to be considered a veteran. So, like, I'm going to pull up the MLB All-Star Game rosters from this year, Jordan. And I want you to tell me who on the All-Star team you would define as a veteran. Okay, I'm just going to quickly go through it and say who I think is a veteran. All right. Marcus Semien.
Yes. Absolutely a veteran.
Is Jose Ramirez a veteran?
I think he has to be, because if you're in the Guardians clubhouse, like, okay. but to the point though, to your point though, when you say like, oh, we got, okay, you're talking to, okay, I'm in the Guardians clubhouse. I'm talking to Daniel Schneemann and Tyler Freeman and, John Kenzie Noel. And they'll say, we got a great clubhouse here. It's so good because we got veterans around like Hosey. They'll say Hosey. They all call him Hosey, and Austin Hedges. Yes. They'll say, right, he's a veteran. Austin Hedges. Perfect
because
veteran.
The word veteran comes from like being in the war. And so I think the experience of having served, right? Like, I don't think
you've seen some stuff and
like
done
Austin
some
Hedges
stuff.
Has served. Okay,
He
just
sure
quickly.
has.
Is Aaron Judge a veteran?
Yes.
But no, he bangs, dude.
No. You're overrating. Like, I know what you're getting at, that like veterans in often ways are like a way to complement a player that is older that isn't good anymore. But that doesn't mean that if you're good, you can't be a veteran. That makes no sense. I totally disagree with that. Because I want to get to more emails, I want to just open this back up. I really do want to get at what is the in-between. I would like to kind of work on that. We don't have to workshop it right now, but I would love some suggestions, because I really appreciate this question from Mike, and we'll circle back on this because there has to be. I totally agree. There are many years between being a rookie and being a veteran, and I would love to know what that player. Because just saying, we say in inside baseball, oh, he's pre-arb, oh, he's an arb play. That doesn't really work. Let's try to come up with something more for casual fans.
It feels that if we're doing veteran, we should lean into military rank.
Sure. I mean, I guess, I suppose. I mean, rookie, is rookie a military term?
What if we call them staff
so?
sergeants?
Let's table this. I think you might be onto something here, but let's go on to our next email.
He's a corporal. Lieutenant
do we
Colonel
need more
Isaac
military?
Paredes.
Do we need more military kind of symbolism in baseball? Probably not.
There goes Second Lieutenant Miguel Amaya. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
But also, it would be interesting because, like, I don't. Is lieutenant above corporal? I think
you.
But I don't know.
You don't know, and I don't know.
I don't know exactly. Anyway, okay. A question from William. This is a quick one. If you had to guess, what is the origination of the curse that has led to the injury bug of the Atlanta Braves? Was Truist Park built on an indigenous burial ground? Did Matt Olson step under a ladder this year while holding a black cat? Did Austin Riley reel into shore cursed pirate treasure while fishing in Mississippi in the offseason? I guess most importantly, what do you do if you're Alex Anthopoulos? Will?
So I would say Truist Park wasn't built on indigenous burial ground, but vibes wise, with the chop,
putting that aside, fair
I'm
point.
Just saying, like,
putting that aside, he said it, not us. You said it, not me.
Not me.
The Braves have been unfathomably healthy over the last few years, and now they are not. The thing is, unfortunately, this is not really the season to be like, woe is me, we are injured. Because, my God, are some of these injured lists star-studded across the league, not just on the pitching side, but like truly there are. But I know for Atlanta, it's been bad.
I think it's been the worst for Atlanta. Let me just say, I think it's been the worst for Atlanta. They lost the defending NL MVP, who's a top five. I'm just saying, top five player in the sport, and Spencer Strider, who I picked to win the NL MVP this year, top 3 pitcher in the world. And now Ozzie Albies out for 8 weeks. Michael Harris, blah, 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 blah. Now, what do? I would say they will do what they did in 2021, which is they will trade for a couple of veteran outfielders. Jesse Winker, Lane Thomas, come on down. They will be underrated in the playoffs because they have such a good rotation. And they'll beat either the Phillies or the Dodgers. That's probably what will happen. There you go.
Yeah, I think that seems fair. I would say I don't really think it matters as much if Matt Olson is terrible. he's having the worst month of his career. I don't know what's going on with him. Austin Riley's turned it on. We were worried about him. He was bad the first 2 months. Austin Riley's been great the last 2 months. Matt Olson looks awful, and I don't know what's going on there. And he's playing every day, right? Matt Olson, I think he currently has the streak, right, for most consecutive games played. I don't believe he's had a day off in quite some time.
Maybe he should take one.
Maybe he should take 1 or 2 or 3 or anything. They finally dropped him out of the leadoff spot. Yeah, he's got to get going, but I do think they'll make some moves around the edges. Who is our next email?
Our next email is from Carson. Carson says, hello, gentlemen. Jordan, hope you're feeling better and enjoying my native Northeast Ohio. Hope you are, Jordan. Jake, tips cap. Yep, I'm less applicable. I'm less relevant to your question. I'm wondering what your guys' favorite trade ever is that didn't actually happen, a rumor, a no trade clause blocked, etc. Love the show. Thanks for the content, Carson. For me, it is the Eric Hosmer, I don't want to go play for the Nats, Juan Soto trade situation where he was involved in the deal to go back as a salary dump. And it was essentially it was all reported out. And he was like, I'm not going to DC. Sorry. And then Luke Voigt had to just get thrown in that trade. Poor Luke Voigt. And instead, Hosmer got sent to Boston because they'd already said that they were going to trade him. And so they didn't have another choice. That one cracks me up because it was such a major, massive trade. And Eric Hosmer, in like his final act, kind of, as a professional baseball player, almost scuttled one of the largest, most significant blockbuster trades in baseball history.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the funniest ones recently. But I don't think if that had ultimately happened, it would have changed much about, how the rest of the season went. Whereas if Bryce Harper actually went to the Astros in a trade that was very much agreed upon in 2018, before Nationals ownership was like, never mind. Not just how it would have impacted the 2018 Astros, how it would have impacted how we think about Bryce Harper, how we think about the Astros, what he could have done going into free agency on a team that was, going into the postseason with 100 wins. Like, there's just so many things with that deal that are truly hard to wrap my mind around.
I think the most interesting sliding doors moment with that deal is, does the Nats window of contention stay open longer because they're refurbishing the farm system with players that would help them between 2019 and 2022, right? Do they ever trade Soto?
Yeah,
if they trade Bryce, is Soto still a Nat?
Right. I mean, again, they still won. They obviously won the next year. So, I mean,
if they make that trade, do they beat the Astros in the World Series in 5 games?
Right. Does he? I don't know. I'm really especially interested in just like how Harper would have been perceived if he got to then play in that postseason. And like, because remember, like, it's just so weird how it's just like nobody wanted to sign him. Like, what are we doing? But anyway, there's so much with that. It's just like, that's a whole podcast on its own. But there's a million more people that are older than us to have a million trades that I'm sure could have happened that are interesting. But it is a good question, Carson. So thank you for sending it in. All right, I'm going to do this next one here. We'll squeeze in a couple more. This one comes from Ben. Ben says, how relevant is the fact that the Seattle Mariners...
Can you read the subject of this email, please?
The subject of the email is the context in which we live, M's edition, with a coconut emoji. Thank you, Ben. That is very funny. Ben says, how relevant is the fact that the Mariners blew a divisional lead in historic fashion? I'm thinking about it in terms of their trade deadline approach and outlook for the rest of the season and potential fan displeasure. Will John Stanton feel a semblance of a strike to his ego and just let Jerry cook at the deadline? Will recent key injuries and emotionally impactful roster fluctuations affect anything positively or negatively? More generally, how have you seen fan expectations of a team impact organizations, if at all? Ownership, coaches, players emotionally at any level. Do fans have a right to be upset? Why was no one booing Daniel Vogelback and Tim Beckham? Interested in your thoughts on the M's recent shitstorm specifically, or any general thoughts y'all might have on the fan experience on a 162-game season. Signed, a first-place Seattle Mariners fan, and though he sent this a couple days ago, still true. The Mariners, who I have not watched since I have contracted COVID because it was not going to make me feel any better.
Is that a symptom?
No, I fortunately slept through these horrible losses. But I am just going to echo generally what I have already said earlier or recently as they have capitulated this division lead and looked like one of the more hapless and hopeless teams in the league. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter how bad they've been. They're in first place now. They still have the best rotation in the American League, or one of the best rotations in the league. And there is no excuse to go backwards. It is that simple. And it just, as awful as it feels, and Nathan Bishop, a Mariners person who I appreciate his thoughts, and even though I don't always agree with his tone, I appreciate Nathan a lot. He had some tweets about this after last night's loss. There's no excuse. If you have this opportunity, no matter how bad it's been, and not still try, then there's no point, because listen, they haven't had, as bad as it's been, they haven't had a chance to win, still a chance to this good to win the division in years. And so I hope they act accordingly. I really do. And it's to me, it's that simple. And I understand as bad as it's been. And John Stanton himself came out publicly when they were cruising, and he was like, we expect to win the West. We want to win this division. So I don't think he can stomach, going backwards either. And I hope that they don't.
As far as your question about do vibes matter? Yeah. As someone who has been around the Yankees in recent years, I have seen Yankee fans crush the souls of Aaron Hicks and Joey Gallo. And it does affect the way players play in certain places, because it's like any job. If you want to go to work and you're having a nice time at the office, you're going to be better at your job. Whereas if you are dreading the experience of being at the office, you're going to be worse at your job. Now, there's a spectrum to that, and these are professionals who can compartmentalize a lot. But I would imagine that just the general frustration around the Seattle Mariners and the jettisoning of Mr. Ty France has not exactly created a whimsical energy inside the Seattle Mariners clubhouse. That being said, one trade and a 3-game winning streak can turn things around pretty freaking quick. And
they play. Listen, I know they should be taking care of business against the Angels this week, that they're not, but they got the White Sox for 3 games before the deadline. So it's right there to kind of get back in it, feel good, make a big trade for a bat, and you go from there, and you hope your pitcher keeps carrying you. So it's been ugly, man. It's been really, really bad. But they're still right there, and they got to go for it.
Jordan, I think this podcast has gone on too long. I think we're going to cut it here. We got a bunch of other good emails.
It's gone just long enough.
Thanks, man.
I think we're in a really good spot. We like to keep this podcast around an hour. We had a couple more that we wanted to get to, but we'll try to get to a mailbag again here soon, probably shortly after the deadline. We will be recording some podcasts in the same place at your bachelor party here soon. So maybe we'll do a mailbag after the deadline. So keep those emails coming. We really appreciate it. baseballbarbacast@gmail.com. Thank you to Andrew Hartz for producing this episode. We will be back on Friday, where I'm just gonna call it. I think we'll have a semi-notable trade before Friday. But we have the deadline, of course, next Tuesday at 6 p.m. All kinds of content coming around that. So thank you all for listening to the show. Thank you, Jake, for recording with me, and only wearing your glasses sometimes. And any final thoughts before we say goodbye?
Just laughing at my Tyler Fitzgerald loves Chapel Run joke still in my head.
Thank you all for listening, and we'll talk to you on Friday.